We just want to listen to Carole Baskin, ask her some specific questions, and Kenny Farr and Susan Arnoff and a host of others, and just find out what happened. And if they really cared about Don Lewis, if they really, really cared like they say they did, why not just sit down and figure this all out?
Figure out what happened to Don Lewis, and that's the attorney for Don Lewis's daughters and the family, who's trying to get some answers. You know, their dad disappeared more than 20 years ago, 23 years ago, and still no answer to what happened. I mean, people don't just disappear. Something happened, and they're looking for answers. Julie Grant has more for us tonight.
Vanishing from his home in Tampa, Florida on August 18, 1997, Don Lewis's sudden disappearance has devastated and troubled his family for 23 years.
I didn't know what to think. Did not know. Where is Dad? What's going on? It wasn't until things just started progressing and the office was broken into and the domestic violence report was presented. It's like, that's when the suspicion started to grow.
At the time, Lewis was married to his second wife, Carole Baskin, CEO of Big Cat Rescue. Lewis tried taking out a restraining order against Baskin just 2 months before, but his request was denied. In his petition, Lewis alleges Baskin was threatening to kill him and has access to firearms, even taking and hiding his. Lewis's daughters say there was another frightening domestic violence incident a few years before.
They lived in another location that had a second story, and she was upset with him. He came home, and she literally picked him up and tried to throw him off the second floor balcony. And the only reason we know that is because he shared that with Mother.
With Lewis's family still yearning for answers, Baskin had him declared legally dead in 2002. She received his fortune through a will recently determined by the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office to be forged, but the statute of limitations for prosecution has passed. Now, Florida attorney John Phillips has filed a complaint for what's called a pure bill of discovery.
Bill meaning like a complaint. Discovery, I know your watchers know about. That's depositions, interrogatories, requests for production, things to discover. And the most important discovery here is a deposition of Carole Baskin.
Put simply, a suit that could compel Carole Baskin to answer questions.
And she's doing a daily vlog rehashing her diary from 23 years ago. So she's making it relevant and prudent even now. And so we just want to sit down and talk about that. And this is a lawsuit for information first.
After announcing the legal quest to get information from Baskin and others, Attorney Phillips heard from none other than the Tiger King himself.
Joe Exotic has messaged through a third party that he wants my contact information to put me on his prison list to be able to correspond. And, you know, there's the expression that the enemy of your enemy is your friend. I'm not going to go that far, but the enemy of my enemy will be certainly an interesting deposition and certainly a source of information because they've been on this a lot longer than I have.
Baskin has been served with a lawsuit, and Phillips is hoping the discovery process will begin before the end of the year.
All right. John Phillips getting ready to depose Carole Baskin and Joe Exotic. Amazing developments here. Let's bring in Julie Grant. Julie, really still an amazing story that continues to develop, but the domestic violence is what really jumped out to me.
Yes, and that is so key, Vinny. That is so key. And speaking with his daughters, it's just heartbreaking. They're lovely people, and they just want answers, understandably so. And the domestic violence allegations are really key in terms of an opinion that one of his daughters has as to what happened. This is Donna Pettis telling me what she thinks happened to her dad, Don Lewis. Take a listen.
I have no proof. But in my opinion, he went home. He proceeded to tell her that he was going to get a divorce. Whether she physically harmed him or whether she enlisted the help of others. I believe in some way he was murdered in some form or fashion, whether it's the meat grinder, whether it's the septic tank. Those are a little outlandish, I believe. Is it a possibility? Certainly. The most likely thing is the ketamine, which is a cat tranquilizer. They immobilized him, decided what to do with him, and there's numerous places that the body could have been disposed of. I do believe that there was more than one person involved. But again, this is all my opinion. I have absolutely no proof.
And she may really be onto something here, because if there was a severing of the relationship at that point, we know studies have shown that the most dangerous time for a victim is when they go to leave an abusive relationship. So, Vinny, you can see why this family really wants answers to all of those questions, and they hope to sort everything out with this suit.
Yeah, and the fact that the Hillsborough County Sheriff has looked at that will and said, oh, this thing was forged, but the statute of limitations has run. I mean, to me, that's a huge development as well. Now, you did a full interview with Don Lewis's daughters. What can we expect to hear? Because we're going to play some more of it tonight.
Yes, they were very, very candid. You'll hear more about the domestic violence allegations. They share more, about that. They also share with me, and we're going to air this interview in parts. You're going to hear tonight about what kind of a guy their dad was. What don't we know about Don Lewis? What hasn't been reported? But some of the really big, shocking things they shared with me was that we know there was a lot of focus on his infidelity. There's been a lot of reporting about it. Affairs, one with Carole Baskin, was, partly what ended his marriage to their mother. And they talk about how they believe that his tendency to have these unhealthy sexual practices and proclivities as an adult might have stemmed from being violently sexually assaulted as a teenager. That was something really surprising. I did not know. They explained that. They also talk about how he kept a relationship with their mother, how he loved her, couldn't understand why he was so unfaithful to her, begged her to stay with him. And Carole Baskin at one point even reached out, typing a long letter, Vinny, a very long letter to their mother. And she says something really eerie in one of the statements. She talks about eventually she would have killed her first husband. And they sent the letter to us. We're going to share it with everyone. So you'll see that long typed up letter and all of the wild, and trust me, it is wild, all of the things she says in it. So that's just some of what you'll see coming up.
All right, and the first part of that interview coming up next hour. Julie Grant, thank you so much.
Thank you, Vinny.